He sat still for 43 minutes, hands folded, eyes on the floor. A picture of calm, right? Then, without warning, every single chair in the front row scraped backward as Marcus Bell lunged at the prosecutor, screaming words no one could even catch. One bailiff dislocated a shoulder, subduing him. The judge added 7 years for contempt in under 5 minutes. The clip hit Twitter with the caption, "Instant karma," but the top comment asked a quieter, more profound question. What invisible fuse got lit? Today we follow that fuse all the way back to a mind that never learned the names of its own feelings. By the end, you'll see why experts now call this hidden condition a bigger driver of prison violence than gangs, drugs, or boredom. Are you ready? Marcus grew up in East Cleveland, fifth of 6 kids, mom working 3 jobs, dad gone before he turned 2. Feelings in that house were luxury items, weren't they? If you cried, you got teased. If you smiled too wide, someone accused you of acting soft. By middle school, Marcus had perfected the blank stare. Teachers wrote defiant on his report cards. What they missed was that he literally couldn't spell the emotion underneath the silence. Neuroscientists have a name for that blank space, Alexithymia, from the Greek, no words removed. Studies from 5 countries show up to 62% of male prisoners score in the alexithymia range. In the general public, it's just 10%. Put differently, prisons collect people who never got an emotional roadmap and then lock them in a place where every feeling is dangerous. It's a truly dangerous combination. Imagine waking up with your internal radio stuck between stations. Just static, garbled voices, occasional screech. That's how alexithymics describe everyday life. They sense something loud inside, something urgent, but they can't turn the dial to label it grief, shame, or fear. So the signal spikes into headaches, stomach pain, or sudden, explosive rage. Dr. Diane Kjelsberg, a prison psychiatrist in Norway, puts it simply, yet powerfully. They bring the body to the doctor in the fist of conflict because they have no third option. The condition usually starts in homes where caregivers punish or ignore emotional talk, then gets cemented by trauma. Marcus saw his first shooting at 9. By 13, he was sleeping in abandoned houses to avoid his mom's boyfriend. Each shock tightened the screw on an already narrow emotional vocabulary. Inside, survival depends entirely on masking weakness. Inmates call it putting on the armor. The problem, though, armor also blocks ventilation. A place designed to regulate behavior ends up outlawing the very language. Crying, apologizing, asking for help. That would let pressure escape. Add chronic sleep deprivation, unpredictable violence, and the constant hum of 48 men in one pod, and the emotional static becomes deafening. Marcus spent 3 years in segregation for a fight he still can't explain. He only remembers his ears ringing and the other guy's shirt turning red. After that, he tried to stay invisible, collecting 0 write-ups for 20 months. The quieter he got, the more his nervous system amped up. Cortisol tests on inmates like him show stress hormone levels on par with soldiers in active combat zones. It's a constant internal battle. On the morning of his resentencing, Marcus hadn't slept. His cellmate had been stabbed the night before. Walking into the courtroom, he felt a ringing again, but now it was mixed with something new. Words. Words he had never let himself use. Mom, scared, please. When the prosecutor, completely unaware of the internal turmoil, called his victim impact statement manipulative, the static sharpened into a single command. Shut it down. Lunging over the table wasn't about hate. It was the body's emergency brake on feelings too big to name. Neuropsychologists call this an emotional storm surge, a flash flood that overwhelms the prefrontal cortex and leaves only fight or flight. In real time, the public saw a monster. In slow motion, we see a system that never taught him to read the weather inside his own skin. It's a tragic irony. Within hours, Marcus faced an additional 7 years, loss of earned good time, and a new classification that barred him from group therapy. Across the U.S., similar outbursts add an estimated 1,200 years of extra sentence time annually, mostly through contempt findings. Judges have to keep order, of course, yet every added year statistically raises a chance of reoffense after release. In Marcus's state, only one court, Cook County Mental Health Court, offers a cooling-off period and mandatory psychological eval after a courtroom eruption. Participation there cut contempt findings by 58% in 2 years. Marcus did not land in that court. He landed in solitary, where the static grew louder and more isolating. Staff pay too. Prison guards have PTSD rates higher than Iraq veterans. Sudden inmate explosions are a daily dread, a constant threat. Taxpayers foot the bill. Each added year costs roughly $38,000, not counting medical care for injuries. Meanwhile, the public absorbs a distorted picture. Viral clips reinforcing the idea that inmates are unpredictably savage, when the truth is closer to untreated emotional literacy on a mass scale. Alexithymia alone is linked to a 3-fold increase in violent misconduct and a 40% jump in self-harm. Yet only 8 U.S. states routinely screen for it at intake. The rest keep guessing why the explosions keep happening, don't they? In 2022, Marcus was transferred to a pilot facility that runs emotion identification circles. Basically, 8th grade health class meets group therapy. For 8 weeks, inmates practice naming feelings using a color chart. Red for anger, blue for sadness, yellow for fear, green for calm. Graduation day looks a bit like kindergarten. Men holding up crayon drawings of their last nightmare. But the recidivism rate among graduates is 19% versus 45% statewide. Marcus's final worksheet listed 23 distinct emotions. He circled ashamed and hopeful in the same breath. 2 months later, he mailed an apology letter to the prosecutor. It was the first letter he had ever signed with both his name and the powerful word responsibility. The Norwegian model treats alexithymia as a public health issue. Universal emotional education classes starting in elementary school, routine screening after any legal charge, and cognitive behavioral therapy as standard in custody. The result? Norway's reoffense rate within 2 years is 20%. In the U.S., it hovers near 60%. Pilot programs in Vermont and Oregon are importing those lesson plans. Early data show a 34% drop in serious assaults. The hurdle, of course, is scale. A single prison therapist may carry 400 clients. Advocates want Medicaid to fund teletherapy behind the wall, arguing it's cheaper than another 7-year contempt sentence. Until then, hidden fuses keep burning, waiting to ignite. Marcus's explosion looked like pure rage because we couldn't see the decades of blank space that came before it. Alexithymia is not an excuse. It is a roadmap. When prisons teach inmates to read their own feelings, they also teach them to stay seated when the prosecutor speaks. One courtroom, one worksheet, one crayon-drawn feeling at a time, the explosions quiet down. The real question is whether we want cheaper justice or just louder bangs. The next time a clip of an inmate losing it pops up in your feed, maybe swap the popcorn emoji for a simple, what happened before the camera rolled? Because once you know this hidden condition, silence starts to look like a warning siren, not a sign of control. And that shift, seeing the storm before the storm, might be the cheapest reform we never budgeted for. It's truly something to consider. If this story rewired how you see prison violence even a little, hit subscribe. We drop weekly deep dives that trade outrage for insight. And if you met someone who sounds like Marcus, share your take in the comments. Could teaching kids emotional vocabulary be cheaper than building more prisons? I read every reply, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.